Dopamine, goosebumps, and jump scares.
Table of contents includes the progression of mental acknowledgement in movies, thesis statement, history of the genre, psychology behind horror films, Nightmare on Elm Street, Graveyard Shift, composition/fashion show Art of the Obvious, and Works Cited.
I was never much of a movie guy, or so I thought, up until sophomore year summer. You see, when I was growing up, I always opted out of watching movies because I simply could not take their strenuous runtimes, always being more interested by the outside or other distractions such as cartoons or YouTube videos, how the average little boy is. Something hit me though at 15, that being a culmination of the effects of puberty finally setting in, but also finding out that my idea of what a movie was is skewed. Movies have always had a natural connotation of being a big, grandiose feature film, like something Marvel would produce, while in reality, movies are purely just a step up from pictures. Movies could be an advertisement, a music video, or even just a stop-motion picture film that a child could make. The discovery that the word movie is an umbrella term made me realize I have always been a movie guy. With the seasons changing, I have found a new affinity with horror films. The whole idea of getting scared, the goosebumps, I just love it. But while diving into the rabbit hole of film, I have always begged the question of why. Why do I feel this way? Why does my skin poke up at certain points when I see something frightening? And I have finally found an answer. Horror movies use different visual techniques such as suspense, surrealism, and atmosphere, playing on the psyche of the viewer, evoking a multitude of different emotions and physiological reactions. To understand the genre, you must first learn about its history. Horror has always been an innate emotion within us, but was never played on as a genre until 1931 with the film Dracula. This film was a catalyst of many things now seen as cliches, such as vampires sucking blood, the setting of a cobweb-ridden, disembodied library found within a castle during a stormy night. Though the movie is now seen more of a product of its time than anything, it was able to spark the imagination of other film directors to sprout into a fully fledged genre by the 1970s. The natural progression of the genre was seen then with films such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which brought the genre into the mainstream, making over $30 million in the box office. As stated by the article The Psychology of Fear by Concordia University St. Paul, a reaction to horror is at play in the fight or flight and sympathetic nervous systems within the brain. These systems are in charge of reactions we make to negative emotions such as fear and stress. When we are exposed to a frightening environment such as a tense scene in a horror film, these portions of the brain release adrenaline, dopamine, and endorphins. Theories on why we like horror movies include the excitation factor, which is how after the viewer gets scared, they are then able to reap the rewards of the feel-good chemicals in ways addicting the viewer. Overall, horror films have so much gravity because they give off chemicals that our brain and body love. A direct example of the genre, A Nightmare on Elm Street, involves a girl named Nancy, a young female protagonist in the bathtub, and Freddy Krueger, contrarily the older male antagonist. The scene uses elements such as surrealism, when Nancy goes into an undisclosed dream where she walks out of the bathroom and suddenly her room is covered in snow, making the viewers become distracted and confused, but also a bit tense because of the traditional syntax of horror films involving things such as jump scares and other sudden attention grabbers. The tension is complemented by other nauseating moments such as the one found at the 2-minute and 12-second mark, where Krueger appears behind Nancy in the same snowy environment and says in a raspy and deep timbre of voice, "Little Nancy, all grown up." While only being a nightmare, Krueger licks the inside of the girl's ears while simultaneously pulling down his metal claws along her skin, making the viewers feel disgusted and have an overall uneasiness. Though this clip ends in an anticlimactic cliche of it all being a dream, showing a product of a time when the film was made, it still encapsulates the many rhetorical elements used within horror films, setting the base for later nuanced renditions. An example of a more modern, nuanced version of a horror movie would be Graveyard Shift, a 2002 SpongeBob SquarePants episode in which different rhetorical and comedic elements are used. The elements of a phone ringing over and over again, lights flickering, campfire-esque storytelling from the characters, and a climactic ending mimic a conventional horror film. Squidward is a big facilitator in this tension build, for example when he says, "There are 3 signs that signal the approach of the hash-slinging slasher." This statement is an example of storytelling and makes the viewers feel suspenseful and intrigued. These elements work equally with a nuanced twist of comedic values such as absurdity, surrealism, and exaggeration. These values are shown through things such as SpongeBob eating a bucket of his own arms as popcorn, or having green slime ooze out of the Krusty Krab on command. Overall, the episode stays true to different rules and conventions of the horror film genre, which were seen previously with the mentioned films of Dracula and A Nightmare on Elm Street, while adversely adding the classic comedic nuances found within a traditional SpongeBob SquarePants episode, fitting nicely into a niche pocket of the genre. Entering my genre, I decided to run a fashion show. The project was heavily inspired by the works of Rick Owens and Balenciaga. Both brands are currently built off a highly nuanced aesthetic with heavy use of monochromatic colors and models with a very rugged appearance, which I mimicked. The show is interwoven between a cinematic chase scene and multiple runway sets, which starts to make more sense as the video furthers. In order to add an essence of atmosphere and the art of the obvious, the lights are red and mixed with a dark room, resulting in feelings of confusion and unsettlement. Music also adds to the visual ethos, which consists of a ghoul-like, airy synth line that then breaks down into growling low tones matched with hard-hitting bass drums. This gives a very upfront auditory cues to the audience, allowing them to more easily set themselves into the mood that the video is giving off. The video then follows an A-B rhythm, flipping from the chase scene to the fashion sets. This sense of rhythm is easily picked up by the viewer, allowing the purpose of storytelling to take place. At the end of the video, however, this rhythm is discontinued, as during one of the chase scene sections, the model with the flower is taken to the ground and killed. The models, now having umbrellas, backed by somber, melancholy music, walk over the model, ending the video.